People laugh when you tell them you're looking for Bigfoot. They think it's a campfire story, a marketing gimmick for small-town tourism. I thought so too, until the day the emails started arriving. They came from an untraceable address, each one containing coordinates deep in the forests of Washington state. No greeting, no explanation, just a set of numbers and a single line. Come before they erase it. I've been an independent field researcher for years, documenting supposed cryptid sightings for my online channel. 99% of it is hoaxes or misidentifications, but there was something about these emails, the precision of the coordinates, the urgency of the wording, that made me pack my gear without telling anyone. 3 days later, I was standing in the Quinault Rainforest, the air thick with moss and silence. Even the wind felt damp here. My contact, if that's what you could call them, was nowhere in sight. I started toward the coordinates, my boots sinking into the spongy ground, camera rolling. An hour in, I found the first sign. A tree. No, 3 trees, twisted at impossible angles, their trunks bent into a crude archway. Bark stripped clean and long, parallel gouges. The claw marks were too high for a bear, too wide for any mountain lion. I crouched, filming the damage, when I noticed something in the mud beneath the arch. A footprint. It was huge, at least 20 inches long, 5 across. But here's the thing. It wasn't the flat, wide shape you'd expect from Bigfoot prints. It was elongated, almost reptilian, with a deep heel and 3 clawed toes. That's when I heard it. A low, throaty rumble, like the growl of something massive and close. I slowly raised my head. Through the archway, maybe 20 yards ahead, something moved between the trees. Tall, broad-shouldered. Its skin, or maybe scales, glinted faintly in the thin shafts of light breaking through the canopy. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. And then, without a sound, it stepped backward into the shadows and vanished. But as I stood frozen there, the forest around me shifted. Every bird, every insect went silent. It felt like the trees themselves were listening. I don't know how long I stood there, waiting for that thing to come back through the archway. Eventually, the pounding in my ears wasn't just my heartbeat. It was rain starting to fall, fat drops pattering through the leaves. I forced myself to move, keeping the camera steady as I crossed under the twisted trees. The footprint was still behind me, but now there was something else, an actual trail, not the kind made by deer or elk. This was wider, cleaner, almost deliberate. The moss was flattened, the mud packed down into a faint but continuous path. I followed it, though every step felt like I was walking deeper into a trap. The canopy grew thicker, the light dimming until it felt like late evening, even though it was barely noon. The rain couldn't reach me anymore, but the air was cold and wet, clinging to my skin. Then I started noticing things. First, the bones, scattered along the trail, small animals at first. A rabbit's skull, the hollow remains of a bird, feathers matted with rot. But the farther I went, the bigger they got. A deer's ribcage, snapped clean through. A partial elk skull, antlers splintered. And then I found the camera. It was a trail cam, the kind researchers and hunters strap to trees. It had been ripped clean off its mount, lens cracked but still faintly blinking. I pulled the SD card, slipped it into my own recorder. The files were corrupted except for one, just 32 seconds long. It showed a night scene, grainy black and white. A man, probably mid-40s, walking toward the camera. He looked over his shoulder once, twice, then froze. Something massive stepped into the frame behind him. For just a fraction of a second, you could see its face, long, narrow, with deep-set eyes that reflected white in the infrared glow. The man turned to run. He didn't get far. The video cut out mid-stride. I swallowed hard, shoved the camera into my pack, and kept moving. But now the trail was changing. The ground began to slope downward. The trees thinned just enough to reveal shapes in the distance, structures. At first, I thought they were cabins, but as I got closer, I realized they were cages. Large, rusted cages, and one of them was open. The open cage door hung crooked on its hinges, one chain still looped through the latch, but snapped like it had been twisted apart by hand. The ground inside was torn up, deep gouges in the dirt, a dark, crusted stain pooling in the center. I stayed back, scanning the area. There were more cages, some half collapsed under moss and rot. Most were empty, but one still had something inside. It moved. I thought it might be an animal, maybe a bear, maybe a wolf, but the proportions were wrong. The thing was hunched low, its shoulders nearly touching the top of the cage, even crouched. Coarse, dark hair clung to patches of skin, and its arms were too long, ending in hands that gripped the bars with slow, deliberate strength. When it lifted its head, my breath caught. Its face was disturbingly human, not in a big ape kind of way, but in the sense that I could see expressions in it, awareness, intent. Its eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, I could have sworn it recognized me. That's when the air changed. The forest sounds faded until there was nothing, not even the rain. From somewhere beyond the cages came a low, rhythmic thud, heavy footsteps. The thing in the cage pressed itself to the corner, curling away from the sound. Whatever was coming, it wasn't friendly to it either. I backed toward the trail, keeping my camera trained on the tree line. The thudding grew closer, then stopped just outside the clearing. Branches shifted. A silhouette stepped into view, easily 9 feet tall, built like something that had been lifting boulders its entire life. Its head was low, its arms long enough to brush the ground, and its skin or fur was matted with mud. It turned its head toward me, and the cage creature made a sound I'll never forget, a deep, almost mournful groan. The giant didn't look at it. It looked at me, and then it smiled. The smile wasn't a friendly one. It was the slow, stretching kind, the kind you see when a predator realizes you've got nowhere to go. I bolted. Branches tore at my arms. Mud sucked at my boots, but the thudding steps followed, steady, unhurried, like it knew I'd tire before it did. Somewhere behind me, the caged creature let out another groan, this one sharper, urgent. I didn't look back until I hit a slope and half slid, half fell into a gully choked with dead leaves. The sound of pursuit stopped. I waited, breath burning my lungs. The forest was silent again, too silent. That's when I heard it drip, drip, drip. A thin trickle of water ran down the gully wall, dark against the mud. Only it wasn't water. Even in the low light, I could see the red. Above me, the giant stood at the edge, its silhouette framed by the pale sky. Something dangled from one of its hands, a length of torn rope, still knotted at one end. The other end was wet. It dropped the rope. It landed with a soft thunk beside me. Then, without a sound, it turned and vanished into the trees. I should have run, but I noticed something. The gully wasn't natural. The walls were carved, smooth in places, with faint markings. My fingers traced over one and came away with a smear of the same dark red. Before I could process it, a faint noise came from below. Not above, below. Somewhere under my boots, deep in the ground, there was movement, slow, wet, pulling itself closer. The ground under me flexed, just enough for my heels to sink a fraction of an inch. I staggered back, but the movement followed, swelling upward like something inside the earth was pressing against a thin skin. Then it split. A fissure tore open with a wet rip, and a smell hit me, wrought copper, and something so ancient it made my teeth ache. Fingers, if you could call them that, unfurled from the crack. Each one was too long, jointed in ways that bent wrong. The skin stretched so thin I could see pulsing veins beneath. They weren't reaching for me. They were feeling the air, searching. Somewhere above, that deep, inhuman groan echoed again, not from the cages this time, but from every direction. The forest answered back, shapes shifting between the trees, eyes glinting faintly in the half-light. And then I realized the cages weren't to trap the giant things I'd seen. They were to keep them out. Whatever was below me, it didn't belong up here. Even they feared it. The hand, or whatever it was, flexed and scraped at the gully wall, leaving gouges in the packed earth. More of it emerged, an arm, a shoulder, and then a face pushing through the split. It wasn't animal. It wasn't human. It was wrong. I ran. I didn't care which direction. I didn't care about the maps, the mission, or the gear we'd left behind. Branches clawed my jacket. Mud sucked at my boots. And somewhere behind me, the ground split again. I didn't stop until the forest thinned, and I saw the faint orange glow of our campfire in the distance. But even now, weeks later, when I close my eyes at night, I hear it. That slow, wet tearing of the earth, that breath, and the way the ground always feels just a little too soft underfoot. If you're reading this, if you ever go looking for Bigfoot or any other cryptid, remember this. Some things walk above, some things walk below, and the ones below are still waiting.